A woman in a dark blue traveling cloak sat alone in the bar, apparently oblivious to the time passing around her. Unmoving and seemingly unbreathing, she blended into the bustling scenery of the Never Not as though she was carved from the same piece of driftwood as the bar top. Though the cloak was pulled tight around her, onlookers couldn't help but notice the swirling electric blue runes and symbols covering her. From the mug held tightly in her hands, they almost seemed to draw one's eye up to her arms, across her collarbones and ending in a blue band running from her forehead to her chin across her left eye. "Gonna order anything else, Daywalla?" asked the barkeep, pausing from cleaning a mug with a very dingy rag. "Depends. Do you have ouzo, or really anything that isn't watery beer made from potatoes?" "It depends. You're always so picky." The woman loosened her grip on the mug. "Sorry, I found out somebody close to me had passed on." "My condolences." The barkeep raised an eyebrow. "If you're looking for something to drink that's more filling for something like yourself, might I suggest paying a visit to the Darkwater Lodge?" The woman smiled, revealing a large, sharp canine. "Thanks. I'll keep that in mind." Standing as she slid an ancient gold coin across the bar. This is wrong," thought the woman as she walked away from the Darkwater Lodge's gates, tilting the styrofoam cup towards her. She could just see the corner of the IV bag poking underneath the lid. Why would you serve it in a styrofoam cup? Inu Duvernay had recommended that she drink it there, but she had reservations. Most cartsists that she had known had an unhealthy fascination with what they called night walkers or bloodstriders, and she had long since learned not to trust anyone whose first instinct was to call you a bloodstrider. Come see Steely Dan's house of Greek artifacts, Roman trinkets, and homeopathic medicines. Untold wonders lie behind those doors, relics from ages forgotten. The voice of the young crier cut through her thoughts and the bustle of the market. The woman turned to see a boy no more than 10, standing on a box and waving flyers like a paperboy in turn-of-the-century Manhattan. Crossing the thoroughfare, she looked him over. "Morning, Mom. Would you like a ticket?" "I'm not sure. What's in the house?" "Oh, just about everything. It's like Ripley's, believe it or not." She laughed. "I met Ripley once. Trust me, that's not a nice thing to say about your boss." Just following my script," shrugged the boy. "2 streets over. Can't miss it." "Well, I'll tell them that you sent me." With its second level jutting out over the street, far further than most building codes would have allowed, the woman had no trouble finding her destination. Surrounded by a disorganized mess of semi-burnt-out bulbs, the only sign simply read, "Stale Dan's House of Wonders." Pushing through the mahogany door, she walked into the gift shop just as a tour was finishing up. Voices somewhat muffled by a helmet and wearing scraps of armor from across the centuries, the guy dipped into a deep bow and gestured towards the gift shop. "I must thank you so much for your patronage. I hope that you had an amazing time, and the next time that you find your curiosity piqued, you know where to find me. Enjoy your time in La Rue Macabre." The woman leaned on the table as the group shuffled out, still oblivious to her entrance. The guide stared at the swinging door. "Not a dang thing. Didn't even look around. Screw me." He started to pull off his helmet, a hoplite helmet from one of Greece's innumerable wars. "Next tour is in 15. Now make that 20 minutes. I've got to get a bite too." He stared at the woman, mouth open. By the sticks, how the heck are you still alive, Arabelle? Come on, Democles. That's no way to treat an old friend. After he'd shut down the museum, Democles ushered Arabelle into a room off to the side. A curious occupation to have, Democles. Democles opened up a cupboard. Actually, I changed it to Dan. Danocules? He laughed. No, just Dan. I had to blend in, and I got really sick of people asking, like the fable and whatnot. What did you think of the sign? Arabelle crossed her legs. I've been alive for 3,000 years, and it's one of the worst jokes that I've ever heard. I hate it as much as I did your wordplay. Dan turned to look at her. So you would have picked something different. I am perfectly capable of killing you. I'm aware, and that's what makes it fun. Dan ignited the stove with a snap and put a kettle on. So what brings you to La Rue Macabre? Aries. And since you're here and not sprinting west, I'm guessing you already. Arabelle nodded. One of those Bayou boys told me what I needed to know. Dan wore a melancholy smile. Perhaps it's for the best. This world is no place for old warriors. It's not more civilized by any means. Just more wrong in ways that we could never have fixed. There was silence for a few minutes before Dan spoke again. But what I want to know is how you survived. Last time that I saw you, you were holding off the mad god of war by yourself, so everybody could evacuate the towns and villages, and I felt that you died. You were a stellar warrior mage, but just a novice channeler. Arabelle showed her elongated canines. Carmilla. That's just like vampires, ruining a heroic death with the curse of undeath. He paused. No offense. Then take it, it's not as bad as you think. Drinking human blood out of, is that a styrofoam coffee cup? Well, that isn't my idea of a good life. I get by. Carmilla runs every blood bank in Europe, so it's not like we're out here killing people. The kettle whistled and danced it up. I'll sleep easier knowing that my long-lost friend isn't murdering people in back alleys. I've not known you to be the one to sleep, especially with a collection this large to manage. Dan shrugged. It started out small, just trophies and oddities, and then it blossomed into what I can only imagine is a health and safety hazard to rival all others. Hey, I've got about a square mile of footage in here, all organized and archived. Dear gods, no wonder nobody bought anything. They had to walk well, however long a square mile is in metric. Dan counted on his fingers and cocked his head at Arabelle. I'm gonna say maybe 2-ish square kilometers. I should know this, I was in France when they made the metric system. Really, me too. Dan smirked and stood as the kettle began to whistle. I imagined that the thought of necks spurting blood would be hard to resist. What with all the... He made a chopping motion with his hand, going on. The court was sending as much food as they could to help the people. I wanted to help, and Carmilla wanted to secure an ally with whoever came out on top. It's nice to hear that death hasn't cured you of your idealism. But as I was saying, most of the building is my personal collection and library. How did you get all this stuff? You never seemed materialistic back in the day, asked Arabelle. Well, after the day we thought you died, everybody just kind of drifted apart. I guess it's just my way of hanging on to the memories. As for the sheer volume, I followed the seat of power. Athens, Rome, Spain, the British Empire, and now here. Just keeping up a collection, or... And believe it or not, but I actually am responsible for a good chunk of these surviving Greek and Roman tales. I mean, I didn't write them, but I remembered them and put them in places for other people to find. Arabelle chuckled. Heroic Dan, keeping the flame of knowledge lit through the dark ages. I'm guessing you left us all out on purpose. Dan didn't respond for a moment. I actually censored some things, or kept others. A misattribution here, a name change there. I don't blame you. Dan turned around, holding 2 mugs of tea. Placing one in front of Arabelle, he settled back into his chair. Arabelle raised her mug. To absent friends, and the roads we walked to find them.